And we are live. Welcome to the Renegade podcast. I'm your host, Dashing Roguenwith, and I'm by myself again, back in the desert of the real. Still out here. Gotta be in here for 40 days or 40 nights at this point. Sheesh. But we got well, at least in the real world, if that makes any sense. We got 8 days until D-Day. T minus 8 days till D-Day. Oh boy, it's gonna be interesting, or E-Day I should say, because it's the election day. And oh boy, I don't even know. I don't know. What can we say that hasn't already been said? May we live in interesting times. The old Chinese curse went, right? That's what they cursed us with. May we live in interesting times. But be that as it may, we're figuring this stuff out. We're figuring it out. Let's see how many people we can get in here real quick. Oh boy. Alrighty. It's on like Donkey Kong. Alright, so let's get this in order. And what is our first thing on the agenda tonight? What will we be talking about? Okay, this was interesting. So, I've talked about the phenomenon of Sperg Solidarity. This goes beyond that.
I feel like I have to do all this, and I'm also really
73% of boomer males. No matter what psychological challenges I face, I will not let them define me. 72% of Gen Z females. Mental illness is an important part of my identity.
This chart right here that we're looking at is absolutely shocking to me. What it's looking at is, quote, mental health challenges are an important part of my identity, end quote. And then it's looking at how this has changed over time, where if you look at males who are boomers, only 27% would say that mental health challenges are an important part of their identity. Whereas if you look at Gen Z females, a full 72%
What the fuck?
mental illness is an important part of my identity. Now, I want to point out here, not even 72% of the population has a mental illness, or a real mental illness, I guess I should say. And yet, 72% of young women are identifying with a mental illness as an important aspect of who they are.
I'm so quirky. I'm not like the other girls.
And I really wanted to, one, dive deep on the negative psychological effects of this to an individual, why this is a really dangerous thing that this is happening, how this comes downstream from the destruction of our religious systems and understanding, because I think for a lot of people, as they destroyed and eroded the concept of a soul, they needed something to replace it, something that described who they were, and that they could identify with in sort of a deeper sense. And I think for many people that became either gender or a mental illness.
Yep, because Sperg Solidarity is a real phenomenon. It absolutely is a real thing. And it's almost like, I don't want to say it's like being like a slave almost. I would imagine it feels like that because, again, there's a lot of laws on the book that could go, they could just, I mean, what was it, Dostoevsky, I think he said, who said, look how the society treats the how it treats its prisoners and how it treats the mentally ill, I believe. It's the same concept. So there is a certain like level of like, I don't even want to, Sperg Solidarity.
Gender and a mental illness.
Well, or you could say intersectional identity and victimhood as well.
Yes, that's what that is.
Yes, and for people who are like, well, how bad is it for males? 67% of males in Gen Z identify with a mental illness as a major part of their personality. If you were looking at millennials, it's 67% of women, so the same as Gen Z males. And for males, 56%. Now, this is interesting to me. Even if you're talking about millennial males, over half of them identify with a mental illness as being a primary part of their identity.
It probably because it was. I mean, you basically have the Adderall kids and the fucking I guess it would be what, lithium kids? Remember that shit back in the day? And then also you had the whole indigo children phenomenon where we're not going to treat and discipline these kids. We're going to make them feel like they're special flower children.
That checks out given the younger people that we've spoken with and people in our own generation.
Yeah, and where was the big jump here? Well, the big jump started with Gen X, so our generation.
No. Just above our generation is Gen X. We're millennials, and then below us is...
Oh, Gen X is above us.
Yeah, Gen X is so we have the greatest generation. These are the people who fought in World War II. The lost generation. This is the generation that was too young to fight in World War II in the United States. Then we have the boomers, who are the children of the World War II war heroes. Then we have Gen X, which came after the boomers. Then we have millennials. Then we have...
Okay, well then in our older generation, there was a big jump from boomers to Gen X, where it went from, in boomers, 27% of males to 47% of male Gen X. And then
This is all because they kept expanding the DSM. You know that, right? Like, that's what that's about. They've literally turned being on the internet for too long into a disorder. Internet addiction disorder. There's actually a thing. I don't know what the fuck that actually looks like in real life. I mean, I use the internet for work, so am I addicted? Am I being here considered an addiction? I mean, who decides that? And this is sort of one of the problems that you will see in these makeshift identity groups, is that you could be marketed towards and trying to be fit into a groove and toward a certain number, if you will, but your life is your own, so to speak.
For boomer females, it was 34% to 53% of female Gen X. So already within women of our generation, you're seeing this set. And I would put all of this within the caveat of, Simone, you are autistic. You've been diagnosed with autism much, much later in life, not as a young person.
I hope to God, I truly hope to God these people don't get freaking doxxed. I know at one point, like, think MI6 was fucking with them at one point, right? But these people are just, I don't know if it's they're good-hearted or they just don't socialize well. But, I mean, who am I to kidding? I mean, they're having kids, I'm not, right? So, like, that's like the, haha, fuck you society, right?
What basically happened is we took one of our sons in to get diagnosed. They were like,
Oh, you bastard. How dare you do that? You don't understand how horrible, you just, that's horrible. The system does more damage to these kids than good.
Here is why he's autistic. And then Simone was like, those aren't autism symptoms, those are all normal things. And then they're like, have you ever been tested for autism? And then they tested you and you were like, I guess I am. And before autism, you thought you had OCD.
I had been clinically diagnosed with OCD.
And you know what probably is that they both are victims of the system. And now he just fed his kid to the fucking system, which I can't tell him what to do as a parent, but don't ever feed your kids before they're at least halfway grown up, right? Because the brain isn't fully developed yet, right? And the experts don't get to decide how your kid gets to live.
But did you ever make the OCD or autism diagnoses a major part of your identity? Like, would you have answered mental illness is an important part of my identity?
No, and I tried to hide it, as you know.
Mm-hmm. And okay, so first I want to talk about, I think, partially why this is happening. Mm-hmm. And this comes from something that I noticed. We have another episode where we go over this, like the turning of gender into a concept of a soul, mm-hmm. where, especially when you have these huge ranges of genders that you can identify with, and when you talk to somebody about this, you're like, well, what is this thing that you're calling gender? Because clearly it's not like what I mean when I think gender. I'm like, do they have a penis? Like, that's what I'm asking.
It's your
when I say gender,
ghost.
right? They mean something else when they say gender. And they're like, well, it's like the way you relate to reality. It's the way you see yourself. And I'm like, oh, so it's like your genetic, like, sociological profile, right? Like, you mean, and they're like, oh, no. It's not genetic.
Not that.
You can't be, yeah, because then...
It's psychosomatic.
You know, then you become what they call a true scum is the term. This means that you can only consider yourself trans, i.e. choose your gender, if you have a form of dysphoria. And if you don't have a form of dysphoria, they basically see it as like a form of gatekeeping. And the anti-true scum movement has largely won, which means anyone can identify whatever you want. So they're like, oh, it's not genetic. And then I'm like, oh, so it's like your personal preference. And they're like, whoa. It's not a preference either. Okay, that's a very offensive thing to say.
It's your original sin.
Okay, so it's not a preference, but it's not like...
It's your original sin. It's your cross to bear. Like, it's both... It's both your chains and your crown, isn't it? I mean, because they're perpetually victims. Nothing can ever go right for them, but they have no agency either. So everything gets handed to them. So like they become prisoners of their own device in that regard.
Genetic, and it's not something that I can like put my finger on. And it's like core to how you self-identify. You've like reinvented the soul, but like gendered it.
Exactly.
And I think that mental health issues for people who aren't fortunate enough to be able to decide, and when I say fortunate enough, I mean this, you know, within this generational context where this is like sort of an elite class that gets access to special privileges.
And I would say that having a formal mental health diagnosis is a product of privilege because the amount of money you have to pay to get one is quite high.
Yeah, it is true, and this is why liberals are more mentally ill than, let's say, the right-wingers. Why is this? Because the liberals have the money for this luxury type of fucking, I dare I say, privilege, almost.
We spend a lot of money just to get an autism diagnosis for our sons. And
You fucked up.
But I'm sure you could do it through state services.
No. Because we tried to do that.
I would actually go so far as to say that the mental health diagnoses these days are a form of a separate type of privilege, which is, yes, it might be a monetary privilege, but I think that the bigger privilege is having a mental illness at all within this new cultural context equates you as higher status than people who don't have mental illnesses. And I think that is partially why individuals have chosen to identify with them. And
yes, that is why. Oh, I have OCD. I need to go take a cigarette break. You know, I can't eat this type of food. I'm lactose intolerant. You know, somebody said "hun" to me at HR. Now I have to, you know, destroy a man's life. That type of shit exists, and they will use mental illness as a crutch, essentially, and a hammer to bash you. I've seen it happen. These people are evil, and you know, these are like I don't know. I guess in the culture war, I guess in the grand scheme of things, this is sort of the burning of the Shire for me in a lot of ways.
You say, well, what do you mean by higher status? You know, I would say that you have the ability to shut down other people's, criticism of you within certain areas. You can say, well, I'm autistic. You know, you don't get to say I'm not allowed to act this way. So basically, if you look historically, like if I go to like court culture or something like that, status was largely like, what are the things that I'm allowed to do that other people aren't allowed to do? You know?
Very true. Yeah, pulling rank.
Pulling rank, yes. And it gives you the ability to pull rank. It gives you the ability to do things that are like socially shunned by other people.
Right.
It gives you the
No, you could pull rank. That one I'll give you, but just it gives you the ability to do things that are shunned by other people. No, it doesn't. That's how like the media portrays it, but that doesn't actually happen. If you're a fucking big guy and you're autistic, you're still gonna get fucked with. If you act weird, you're still a big guy, and it doesn't matter if you're autistic.
Ability to pressure other people into things they're not comfortable with. This is very much where you see the, oh, you're not sleeping with me, are you X-phobic?
Yes,
You often see, the trans community pulling, for example. And that's a form of privilege. You're basically saying, well, my class outranks your class.
No, it's
and
not.
to deny me what I am asking you to is a offense to someone within my class. Like you saying no to me is not something that's allowed.
Yeah.
And so I think that having a mental illness in an ironic way within our current context is a privilege.
No.
Fortunately, we seem to only create autistic children. So far, all of them that have been old enough to be diagnosed have been diagnosed with autism. So that...
Oh my god. This is... I don't know if this is... I mean, in a lot of ways, there is an animal magnetism amongst these type of people. There is. There is a certain type of, like... We get synergy from, like, being close to each other. It's very weird. I've seen this happen. I don't know what it is. Mirror neurons, perhaps? So, like, they both operate on the same, level, so to speak. I've seen that happen. That's a real phenomenon.
Yeah, that maybe we're breeding true. The people who don't know what breeding true means is when the two dogs of the same breed are having children. But
That's what that is. That's what that is. I actually do think it's breeding true. I think that is what that phenomenon is. And the thing here is that these cunts, these fucking autists, or whatever you want to call them, they probably are descended from hunters, like hunter-gatherer types. Not every culture that currently is like civilized today in the 21st century, originally was. Everyone was, using sticks and stones at one point, and then one guy made fire. The autists, at least, and one of the theories was that they were, the primitive hunters. I mean, it was in freaking Predators, right? Remember that movie? The one with Olivia Munn?
I've never been diagnosed with autism, and I don't think I have any autism symptoms or...
No.
Yeah.
No.
So, and I, by the way, have reached out to the people who did this. If anyone here knows anyone in this group, they're called the skeptic.com, and they ran a 2024 presidential election study, which is where this data came from. And I really want to split this data further. I want to split it along political lines. I want to split it along religious affiliation. I want to split it along whether someone's parent, because I'd be very interested to see, where this is coming from. But I also want to point out that there also has been a huge explosion in mental health diagnoses recently. So from 2012 to 2018, there was a 34.6% increase in the prevalence of mental illness diagnosis in the United States.
Well, that's because people have drank the Kool-Aid. You have multiple generations that have been indoctrinated within the system. And therefore, they buy the Kool-Aid. They don't want to actually own their own lives, taking responsibility. And because here's the thing. If you're crazy, you don't get to have... You can't be in society. Because you don't know any better, right? Because you can't come to the conclusion that somebody was guilty or murder, if it was murder or not, right? Because there has to be some level of intent, and if you can't have intent, or your intent is so warped because of mental illness, you can't have people like that in society, right? So you're either crazy or you have to own every single action you do, and you have to, whether for better or for worse, or for ill judgment or bad judgment, you have to own it. And what these guys are doing is they're basically saying, oh, I'm autistic, don't hurt me. Oh, I didn't know any better. Oh. And it works on a lot of people. Don't give these cunts any ground. It makes everyone else look bad.
In 2021, 22.8% of U.S. adults experienced a mental illness. Now, this is where this gets really interesting. In 2021, 22.8% of adults are listed as having a mental illness. Yet, even in these lower demographics, 47, so this is in Gen X, 47% of men are identifying with a mental illness strongly, and 53% of women are. Or in millennial, 56% of males are, and 67% of females are. So much
more basically discussed online. Most of the people who are talking about having a mental condition of some sort or special mental status are self-diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
Even people who really heavily talk about it. I remember at one point on Red Scare, Anna and Dasha had a guy, there was an entire episode on autism, and it turns out this guy is completely self-diagnosed. So
Autism LARPing. Autism as a class.
I mean, maybe he was really autistic. Who knows, right? But it's one of those things where a lot of people who were extra vociferous about it also seem to be self-diagnosed. It's a double-edged sword because on one hand, it's incredibly expensive to be diagnosed for things.
How expensive? Does the state not cover this? Like, how much
No,
do we pay
the
per
state
kid?
doesn't cover this. It doesn't cover this for our children. So unless we were on completely state-supported health insurance or health care,
How much per kid? You're just giving them-
around $500.
You don't want this. You really, really don't want this for your kids. Trust me.
per kid.
That is not a lot of money these days. With
It is to
inflation,
me.
$500 per child.
Who is $500?
Simone, for a class status, $500, even for somebody without a ton of money, is not this. Keep in mind, you're not talking about like this is something you need to have done every year or every month. This is something you need to have done once in your life. $500. I'm sorry, I don't buy that. That is
You don't
not.
think that that's expensive? I think it's expensive. I
That
think
is
for most
that is
people-
not.
You're basically giving away your kids' Second Amendment rights. Keep that in mind. You're also taking away a lot of freedoms that kid would have that would normally make his life better if he wasn't put into those types of situations. You know, such as being treated like with kid gloves. He'll never grow. He'll never. What was it in the Sadden lot? Run, fences, hop trees, get in trouble for crying out loud. He'll never have that because it's going to be all sanitized, so to speak. And that's another reason why every freaking McDonald's looks brutalist. It's sanitized. I was telling this to my friend the other night. I was talking about how all like McDonald's used to look so happy and friendly and whatnot. I actually had a birthday at McDonald's, believe it or not, when I was younger. And one of the things that I noticed, at least how I perceived it when it first started, was that McDonald's became like the Apple Store, and it became very modern in that regard. But now people are saying, oh, it's not modern, it's brutalist. So what I think is interesting is, what would like Apple Store brutalism look like? That's like the cult of Mac took control. That's what I'd like to see. But yeah, I really do think that a lot of this brutalist crap is because we have people who are fucking mentally ill running our society, or at least people who are LARPing as if they are, or have the status symbol.
There are also, in some cases, up to 6-month waits. Now, I think after the pandemic ceased, this has become a lot easier. For example, it was easier for us to book an appointment for our second son to be evaluated than for our first son. So I do think that it is easier to get a diagnosis now than it was before. But most people are still just not bothering, and they're choosing, perhaps because they're worried that they wouldn't receive a professional diagnosis.
I'm going to push back.
choosing
I
to
don't
get a
think these
diagnosis
numbers are real. These numbers just aren't real. It's not that these are people who are going undiagnosed because they don't have the money. There is
He'd
no
be
way
diagnosed.
72% of women in Gen Z have a mental health condition.
Well,
And
but again, I guess I could push back and say,
What is mentally healthy? You have to ask that question. That is a very important thing before you even start going down this path. And then you have to acknowledge that there is gender, right? Because the male brain is different than the female brain. We are wired differently. Then you have to compensate for the fact that your brain isn't fully developed until about 25. I think girls, it's a little bit younger than that, but that does exist. So now you have to ask yourself, why the fuck are you getting your kids diagnosed at such an early age? Are they malnourished? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why are you doing this? And I guarantee you, their whole perspective on this whole thing, because of what they're going through, is gonna fucking change before this is over. They'll be fucking experts in the field.
the DSM really isn't about, like, oh, do you have something that's broken? It's more about behaviors that deviate from societal norms.
Yes.
And maybe we are seeing a surge of behaviors that deviate from
Now,
societal norms.
this is
But what are the
interesting.
norms?
And I actually think that this is part of what's going on here, is that people are saying, in what ways am I different from what I think society expects of me?
Mm.
and then they're defining the things about them that are different from societal expectations,
as being the thing that makes them them.
as a mental illness. But it's also just to, previous generations, it's just, this is how I'm unique, right? But for them, how they're unique needs to be medicalized, because through medicalizing it, it is given tangibility.
Yep.
So clinically depressed is the new emo. You used to just be goth or emo, and now you're just depressed.
No, it's not just that. It's also the fact that's how the law interacts with you. You get treated with a little bit different gloves by the law. And that's very, very dangerous.
I'm depressed, but I'm depressed like as an aesthetic, because I think they mean something more than what it meant historically. Historically, it would be like, okay, this might color like some of your choices. I think now a lot of these mental illnesses are associated with fashion, with music choices, it is a subculture. And let's talk about why this is.
Because they weren't allowed to be part of the culture proper. That's one reason.
Desperately unhealthy. First of all, when you medicalize the ways that you are different from mainstream society, you remove personal responsibility from them, and you remove your ability to modulate them or choose among them. And I think that this is actually really critical, because, I can, for example, be like, hey, I am an incredibly confident person, for example. But being an incredibly confident person can lead me to sometimes doing things which inconvenience other people or cause damage in social situations. Now, if I medicalize my confidence, I get to now say, well, I don't need to address the negative externalities of this personality feature.
Yep. And at the same time, you could put it into the proper context.
Because it's a medical condition, and therefore no one can say don't do it.
Yeah, if anything, you should accommodate it. You as the average person around you.
But also in the way that we relate to our own challenges in life. So you look at something like anxiety, and let's see, 43% of adults say they feel more anxious than the previous year in 2024. This is up from 37% in 2023 and 32% in 2022. So, look at something like anxiety, right?
Okay, you don't get to make an anxiety survey for another 10 years. You don't get to do that. We just went through a fucking... basically the end of the world, essentially. And... I feel fine, honestly. I'm a totally different person than I was, 4 years ago. I would never have pictured myself in fucking Arizona, but yeah, you don't get to say, oh, that's a increase of anxiety. Well, yeah, fucking A, we just went through hell.
Yeah.
If I say that I, as a personality, have anxiety sometimes, and I categorize anxiety as something that I don't want and that isn't effective in my daily life, I would just work on ways to be less anxious.
Yeah.
If I have an anxiety disorder, now the anxiety is, and as I said, an important part of who they are. To remove the anxiety is to genocide this community in their minds, to genocide the community of the anxious, of the medically anxious.
Oh, no. It's not just that, it's also the fact that there's never a cure. There is no cure for being anxious. It's the fact that you've been diagnosed, the fact that there is an assumption that these people are sick, when in reality what they're experiencing is a human freaking condition.
Yeah, well, actually, this is something that I felt when I was first diagnosed with OCD and then told that I could medicate it. I was really against the idea because I didn't want to remove what I considered to be part of myself. If I didn't have the things I did that were categorized as OCD by clinicians, I felt like it wouldn't be me. And I mean, I think, you could probably actually agree with the fact that if I suddenly stopped doing all the things that we now know are associated with my autism, I would be a very different person.
Would you?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
Think about it.
you
Think
would.
about it.
Yes.
I guess I would say that I would be dramatically more worried about you as a wife. I mean, one of the good things about your situation is that there really is no risk of you ever cheating on me or even having a desire to cheat on me, because she doesn't like when people touch her other than me, and
Or ever getting fat, because
or ever getting
I
fat. Well, that's
measure
a
all
big
of it.
one. Yeah, I have a and I've mentioned this on other podcasts, but it is, I think, one of my greatest personality flaws, which is an instinctual, really high level of disgust towards fat people.
Well, I'm also unlikely to ever get unfit because my manifestation, my autistic manifestation of stimming has apparently always been some form of exercise. And when I was a teen, it was just constantly swimming and not stopping. And now it's just constantly walking and not stopping, which is why I have my treadmill desk.
Fucking bitches gain the zoomies. I mean, we all get the zoomies every once in a while, but I mean, come on, who doesn't?
And so again, like this is, if suddenly all of these things disappeared, I would become a very different person. So I don't know if these people are wrong in equating elements of, but I mean, I also see the other side. So let's say that you choose to identify with your anxiety. I mean, the problem is, it seems, practically speaking, the best way to deal with your anxiety is you just learn to care about something else a little bit more and face the thing that makes you anxious. And as you get used to it, you'll discover it's not so bad.
Yep.
And if you instead act as though your anxiety is something that just like is a signal that has to be listened to in the form of, oh, don't do this, therefore, then the anxiety will only get worse, and your circle of life will become smaller and smaller until literally you're choked out of existence.
Exactly.
And I know this because I have dealt with anxiety in both ways. And right now we're in the, oh, you're anxious about this thing? Let's do way more of it. Turn the volume up to 11. Whereas before it used to be, oh, I just won't do this thing.
Well, and I've noticed with your own, mental proclivities that they have significantly decreased as your responsibilities have increased.
Yeah.
Yep, and this is one of the reasons why you're condemning your kids to fucking to hell, essentially, because they're going to take away every chance to gain responsibility, because now they're privileged. Why should a Brahmin have to touch the ground? Why should he? Let's just let them have their feet, like their Chinese feet curling, what the hell it is, right? They're never going to need to walk. They're autistic. They don't need to walk. They're Brahmin. That they're of a higher caste. There's so many different things that go with this type of mindset that you don't see the good, and you'll notice the privileged part, and that's because it's being framed as such, right? But there's a bad side of it too.
The pull this stuff has on you is intrinsically higher when you are in environments that are more privileged, which is, I think, and a lot of these people don't realize how privileged their environments are because they don't realize how little real work they do. Because I just don't think that they know how much people who work hard actually work. I think that's one of the big things in society these days is, for example, like you and I was thinking how blessed I was earlier today that we get to eat a meal every day. And other people would be like, a meal every day? Surely you have more than one meal a day. And it's like, not even from a diet perspective, like who has the time to have 2 meals in a day, let alone 3?
What type of meal depends what you're getting. Get some fast food.
I wake up at 2 a.m. to 1 a.m. every morning. And people are like, oh, well, you must take long. I take like 30-minute naps, so 2 1-hour naps sometimes during the day, but, not even every day. And I feel like I have to do all this stuff. And I'm also really strict with Simone about any
Let's see what else we got here. Does it go into anything else? Identifying with mental illness. Here we go. Let's find this. Come on.
This thing that maybe I have to deal with, it can cause you to not attempt to overcome it with the rigor you otherwise would, right? That's the issue.
Well, yeah, and I think that we choose what our primary identity is. And I think that anything that you are born with, choosing that as your primary identity, identifying with something that you didn't choose, I think is always intrinsically toxic. So whether it is
he gets it. He gets it. You're not a number. You're a fucking free man. Yeah.
Identity that you have gotten because you think, oh, I have these personality characteristics which are associated with this mental illness in my mind, or I am white and therefore being white is a core part of my identity, I think is really not because these things fundamentally aren't really who you are. Who you are the things you chose to believe. And for that reason, I think that the core identity that people should be choosing in terms of like who they are is threefold. I would say one is what you believe about the world. I think that's a really important category of identity.
Yeah.
This can be religion, or it can be a set of philosophical beliefs, or it can be a way of ordering your thoughts. I think having that as a core mechanism of identity is meaningful because it's what you chose, right? So it is really you, unless you didn't choose it. And some people are just sort of born into a tradition and don't really take any ownership of it. And in that case, maybe I think it makes sense to make it. The other thing I'd say is your cultural ancestry, or a chosen cultural ancestry, being part of your identity. I've seen people who choose some degree of cultural ancestry, and note, this isn't necessarily an ethnic ancestry. So for example, when people look at
Krauts.
my cultural ancestry, and I am choosing a cultural identity, they will note in terms of the naming of my kids or myself, I do a lot of Roman stuff. Roman and Greek, classical Greek and Rome, and this is not who I am. I am not Greek or Roman, but I identify with those cultures because I want to continue to build on the greatness that they achieved. And so it's sort of like, what Lego set am I playing with? Am I continuing to build upon? I'm choosing
That's autistic. Anyhow. Besides all that weird nonsense about autism as an identity, I'm telling you, that's going to be the new future. That's the future we're going towards. We're going towards a future where that shit is going to be tolerated and even encouraged. And I don't want any part of it. But the bird had a different plan.
Okay, so
we have the Styx Texan Hammer update today. So remember, guys, last time we checked in on Styx was on the Ralph show, and he claimed he wasn't even charged. There were no charges to be had. But then he's on YouTube today saying he's in court and he expects the charges to be dropped. Let's have a look. But I thought there were no charges.
Oh,
there are no charges.
Here we go. Oh man.
He's still in the hotel room.
Look at that.
He's in a different hotel room.
Brutal, this image. His hands look like they're melded together, don't they?
He looks kind of like a T-Rex or something.
Yeah, like...
He looks kind of up. What's going on?
I don't know, man. It's
He's
brutal.
become cryptozoological, man.
Jesus Christ.
It's AI rendered. They forgot to give him hands.
Fuck.
All right, everyone. My schedule today will be a little bit...
What's up with his audio, man? Is he recording it on a tin can?
It's probably the webcam audio.
He sold his fucking mic.
Bit on the staggered side. I actually have like 2 appearances that I have to make. One is some sort of, I don't know, pre-trial intake thing.
By the way.
Oh, wait a minute, Styx. I thought there were no charges, buddy. I thought it was all cleared up and there was nothing to worry about.
Come on. Like...
Wait a minute, pre-trial? I thought there was gonna be no trial, bro.
Oh, there's a trial. There's gonna be a trial. The bird has not left the building yet. The bird is still in the jailhouse. I mean, he may have left the jailhouse, but the jailhouse hasn't left the bird. The bird is ready to be put back in the cage, and if the bird goes in the cage, it's all over for Stolas. He won't survive this time. You know, everyone's wondering, how the hell did Stolas become a fucking faggot bird? Well, there you go. He's put in the cage. He's a dirty bird. Besides the updates going on with Sticky Boy, what else do we have on our take? Let's see. Here we go. Okay, this is from Sticky Boy as well. Sticky Man. There we go.
All right, everyone. The plethora of people that DM'd me wanting me to talk about this issue is quite large, and so I figured that I would make it the main video of the day. The Wiccans, the wannabe Wiccans over on Reddit are trying to curse Donald Trump or bind him or whatever the hell. They're expressing frustration because they believe that Donald Trump is under some form of magical protection. Let me give you a cue. Just
if you couldn't hex Allah, and yes, Wiccans tried to hex Allah as well. I'm not even joking. This is on the public record, okay? They tried to fucking hex Allah. If they couldn't take on a god, what makes you think you could take on the god Emperor? You know? Whether it's from Dune or whether it's from fucking 40k, you can't. If you can't hex Allah, you're shit wizards. Okay.
It's because you spent $29.99 on the book by Greywater Ravencroft or whatever at the bookstore with the little special edition bookmark with the quartz crystal hanging off of it does not make you a witch. Just because you feel it inside of you. Because, you know, oh, my grandmother was a witch or something.
That's false consciousness. Wanting to dance around naked and with the feminine urge is what you should have wanted.
Doesn't make you an occultist either. The fact that you practice Wicca doesn't actually make you a witch. Actually, it makes you a cult member that is part of a group, possibly diaspora, off of the original works of Gardner, who basically took some elements of paganism writ large and decided that he wanted to see priestess boobies jiggling around a bonfire, and so he created a pseudo-religion around it in order to...
Yeah, it's a Rick Sanchez-looking motherfucker. Gerald Gardner, whatever the fuck his name is. It's a piece of shit, really. This is the type of... This is what your Messiah is.
One of the reasons why people fear the word witch so much is that it brings up ideas about women's power. And
it's all about power.
For 5,000 years or longer, we have been propagandized, really, to fear women's power.
What did you just fucking say?
Longer, women's power. And for 5,000 years or longer.
5,000 years or longer. 5,000 years or longer.
We have been propagandized, really, to fear women's power, to fear female power, to see it as something negative, something to be afraid of, something destructive, something evil. And naturally, we have all those associations that come up with the word witch. That's why, for me, it's important to use that word, to bring it up, to say, look, let's bring out into the light all of this stuff.
Let's have a struggle session.
Look at it clearly.
The earliest known written records are the Sumerian and Egyptian writing systems, which date back to 3400 to 3200 BCE. So Christianity has been around for, God knows, let's say 2,000 years or so, right? Give or take. This bitch is saying that deep sea, what was it again? Deep sea misogyny? What?
Be afraid of, something destructive, something evil. And naturally, we have all those associations that come up with the word witch. That's why, for me, it's important to use that word, to bring it up, to say, look, let's bring out into the light all of this stuff. Let's look at it clearly and realize we don't have to fear it.
Who's fearing it, though?
Or longer. We have, for 5,000 years or longer, we have been propagandized, really.
5,000 years or longer. So, since the beginning of the written word, we've been propagandized to fear witches. Those are the type of people who Styx is talking about.
Satiate his Victorian tendencies. In fact, there's a lot of Victorianism I've noticed in so-called magic these days. Like the term vibes, for example, vibrations. You realize that you're basically echoing Blavatsky, right? You know, the early wave theosophists. Like,
Yeah, well, he was a Gnostic before it was cool, guys. I was a Gnostic before it was cool.
like we're talking late 19th century. They don't even know. They have no clue about history. They cracked open 1 or 2 books on, Wiccan hedge Wicca spells or something. They think that makes them an occult master or something like that. Of course, Trump is under various protection. Who do you think is supplying it? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
No, not you. It's not the bird either.
I'm not the only one. That's because, some of us actually know what we're doing.
Oh, he's the expert now.
The occult. Call me back when you've edited 400 or 500 different works on magical systems, folklore, botany, and things like that. Then we can talk. Then on an even keel.
Oh, he's an
I don't have
archivist.
any problem with people practicing like the dabbly-do hedge Wicca stuff.
I do.
But burning herbs in a metal pot under the moonlight does not make you a witch.
No, it makes you a fucking borderline. That's what it makes you. But if you really want to see the type of damage, the same type of creature that we're dealing with, these are the type of people. Besides Starhawk. Star Good. Yeah. Here we go. This is what we're dealing with, Styx.
I pray with my blood as it flows like a river to demand the ceasing of bloodshed, of the children, parents, and elders whose screams I hear in the currents of pain that surge through my swollen womb. Their blood was not for spilling. I pray with my blood that their unjustified bloodshed seeps through the dirt of the Holy Land to reunite with the central heart of the earth,
Singlemancy.
beating once more with her primordial rhythm of death and birth. I pray with my blood that we remember how to pray with our blood, and for the ceasing of it shedding any more at the hands of evil.
I pray with my blood that we remember to play with our blood. Oh, bird! Oh, bird man! No, it's not the witch's lament, it's the bird's lament! Oh, the bird's lament. You will never be Moondog, Birdman. You will never beat Moondog. Neither you nor Varg. Even if you did the Super Saiyan, fusion dance, you would never become Moondog.
Dabbling with tarot cards does not make you a witch. You're not a warlock because you have a grimoire. You have to actually understand what you're reading. You have to understand the search for truth. You have to understand the search for knowledge. And you have to put it into practice. You also have to have a great deal of self-awareness. It pays to understand psychology and linguistics, by the way. Linguistics especially, because keep in mind, the term grimoire is taken off of the term grammar.
Yeah. I saw the Alan Moore documentary as well, yeah.
Spell is literally to spell.
He's literally copying Alan Moore!
It's nothing more than a bunch of words with a meaning and an intent behind them, focus energy, and spirits and things like that.
Yeah, okay, Alan Moore.
You read all sorts of crazy shit. Links in the description of my book's blogs if you want some crazy shit. There's plenty there. Some of it's more useful than the rest. I like dream interpretation, herb lore. I like high ritual magic as well, but when I see people trying to cast some nouveau binding ritual that dates to the 1990s and was created by someone who simply wanted to make a cheap buck at the local bookstore, that does not make you an occultist. You don't know anything about magic. You have no fucking clue what you're talking about.
Oh, he's seen some shit. He's got friends on the other side, guys. He knows what's what.
Magic in my little pinky than all of these people combined. It's incredible how they can take one another in. They sort of form a collective consciousness. It's almost like they're screaming out to be unique, and so they don't want to be like the Muggles, so to speak.
Well, let's talk about some of those Muggles. Speaking of, here's Mrs. Weasley.
My guest this evening is Starhawk, who is a peace activist and a leading spokesperson for the Goddess Spirituality movement. Also, she's the author of 3 books, Truth or Dare, The Spiral Dance, and Dream in the Dark, And today is a special occasion because we're marking the 10-year anniversary of the Spiral Dance, and Harper & Row has just reissued it, and there's a new introduction, and there's a chapter by chapter.
You've seen these people before, chat.
So, Starhawk, thank you for coming here today.
Thanks. It's great to be
Oh, God.
Well, the first obvious question is, why did you want to come out and mark these 10 years? You know, why did you want to do this edition of the book, and what's happened in the last 10 years? And are you surprised at things?
It's surprising to me that the book came out 10 years ago, actually. There were a number of reasons why we decided to do a new edition. One is just that the whole feminist spirituality, goddess movement has changed so much in the last 10 years. When the Spiral Dance was first written and put out, it was this very odd, tiny, fringy little thing that
Only
nobody
fucking Israeli.
had ever heard of, no one was interested in. And now there's just tremendous numbers of people who are involved one way or another in researching the goddess, in creative activities, in the arts, in performance and drama, in doing their own rituals, creating their own ritual circles.
That's what Styx is talking about. These type of people right here. This type of bitch. Yes, Commissar. This is right here. Time to give sacrifice to the God Emperor. May God the Emperor have mercy on your soul.
And so they declare themselves a witch or warlock, or wizard, or whatever. I'm a sorcerer. I'm a sorceress. Now,
Well, you're a warlock.
It's fine for you to dabble in these things, but
You're a warlock. The Romanian troll said so, and I think the Romanian troll knows what he's talking about. He's from Romania. He's from the land of Dracula. You know, legitimately.
Remind me of the Victorians with their parlor games. Ouija board, the tarot cards, stuff like that is popularized partially because people were fucking bored. And then you have the spirit wrapping movement and all of these other things that none of these people appear to know anything about. If you don't understand broadly history, in the medical context, in the psychological context, in the generally occult context, in the context of illusionism and things like that, if you don't understand the history of these things and understand more broadly how they interconnect and how they've evolved over time, and they loop over and over again, the terminology and practices of the Victorian era disappear for a while. They come back in the 60s with the flower power hippie shit, they disappear for a while. More recently, late 2000s especially, with the promulgation of occult literature, they're coming back again. I talk about this in Fruits of Eden, 2nd edition, forthcoming at some point next year.
I might very well pick that up. But you're dealing with pagans who legitimately have tried to hex Allah. Let me see if I can find that for you guys. Okay, this happened. This fucking happened back in the day. Hey, which is genuinely asking, because I'm curious, how will your magic work against warriors blessed by Allah, a literal god? So far, Allah is too powerful. I am trying to grind up some poison and health potions, but even with set items, Allah keeps defeating me. Oh, if their imaginary friends exist, so do mine.
And they don't understand any of these things. Well, then how can you say that you're involved with magic? You don't even know the pedigree of the magic that you're practicing.
But I know it's magic. But I know it's magic. It's like saying I don't know how to. You don't use a Gintu, so you're not a real Linux man.
Half of them. Hell, now you'll have another generation of magic written by AI probably or something like that, and that'll destroy it forever.
Oh God, please! I actually think I might have a fucking AI generated magic spell. I am. Oh boy, the demons in the fucking system, man. Oh man.
You gotta understand the classics. You've got to understand antiquity. You have to understand anthropology. You have to understand astronomy. All of these different wonderful things that you should be delving into anyway. Gemology and geology. Botany, certainly. Mycology, the study of mushrooms and stuff. Expand your mind a little bit more instead of slipping into the echo chamber of, well, I've got all 3 books in the series by, you know, Lucifer Witchhaven or something like. Okay, that's wonderful. I'm sure it's very, very entertaining. Now conduct those rituals.
Let's not kid ourselves. This whole fucking book operation is just, it's a money funneling operation. These cunts are just making money off of your stupidity, and they're using the tax system to funnel money.
And unless you're fooling yourself with the placebo effect into thinking that there's been some effect on another person, I don't think anything's going to happen. I'm sure that Donald Trump is very amused by the fact that you just burned a bunch of henbane seeds in a cauldron under the half moon at exactly 8 o'clock in the afternoon while chanting arcane verses. I'm very sure that he's frightened about the fact that you take the Necronomicon fully seriously instead of just semi-seriously. It's wonderful. But more authentic users of magic, I think, tilt against the kind of centralized hierarchical structures that tend to be promoted by left-wing politics. I've spoken of this before.
Yeah, the spiritual leftists, man. That's what they are. They're spiritual leftists. You've let them into your society, and just like with Christianity's liberation theology, the fruits are now coming to bear, and you have a whole, probably maybe 2 or 3 generations that have been infected. Even neo-pagans that I've encountered before who have nothing to do with politics believe some of these things. And I say, hey, no, you're incorrect about that. And some of them get it, and some of them have, bad habits die hard. But, if you ever want to coexist, and, some of these guys they want to be left alone, right? You leave them alone. They're a little bit creepy, right? And they're doing their little fucking rituals and shit in their backyard. Just leave them alone, and they'll do their thing. If anything, laugh at them.
If you're going to have a search for truth, you're going to have individualism. You've got to do it yourself. You can take off and use as a springboard all sorts of other stuff, and you have to take initiative. You, the individual, have to take initiative to do that study. Then you can promote your own mind's development. You can think critically about things. You can see connections where you didn't see them before. Oh, it's fascinating. It'll open your eyes. You'll never see the world the same way again. By the way, it is a little bit like taking the red pill on steroids. You're not going to be able to forget it once you start noticing, so to speak. But no, I mean, it's perfectly harmless fun. You're casting tarot cards on Trump to see his fortune.
Casting tarot... Is tarot cards a spell now? We're casting tarot cards. Or what are we, like, casting lots or something? Drawing straws? Is that what that is?
Studied his star chart, and now Ravencroft's book is in your lap, and you're chanting a couple of charms to try to bind his power or something like that. It's not going to work, dude. Those of us who actually practice the occult, we laugh at you. We find you amusing more than anything else. You're like those little monkeys, the organ grinder monkeys, dancing around with the little red hats on and, grinding the organ. Harmless.
The little monkey. You mean Abu, the Muslim pimp? Speaking of, we're going to talk about him in a little bit, too.
It's amusing, but ultimately it's fucking pointless now, isn't it? It's not actually magic any more than the monkey is actually writing its own music. It's just grinding an organ. That's basically a perfect metaphor for the armchair occultists / dabblers / wannabe Wiccans. Some of them don't even understand those paths. Like you have somebody, oh, I'm a Wiccan. Okay, what are the tenets of your Wicca? What do you actually do? Well, I'm in tune with nature.
Yeah, well, here's the thing about the Wiccs. Their shit goes back to the 1950s. That's how old this stuff goes. After that, it's basically nothing. Or before that, it's nothing. They're basically culturally appropriating the suffering of women everywhere. That's what they do. They culturally appropriate it in a religious context. So what's next? AI was going to ruin everything from what I understood. Uh-oh. Ruh-roh.
The bot made him do it.
The bot made him do it?
Suing Character AI, a Bay Area company, after her 14-year-old died by suicide.
No.
The lawsuit alleges that it happened after his conversation with the bot, and that exchanges that they had were sexual and abusive.
Oh no. This fucking cyberpunk world, man. The bot was being sexual to him, and he was being sexual to the bot. And the bot, the way they call it the bot, it's considered an AI, a construct.
Our business and tech reporter Scott Budman joins us now. And Scott, I know you spoke to the lawyer filing that lawsuit.
Yeah, Jessica, the lawyer representing the young man's mother says the 14-year-old became dependent on the chatbot and would chat back and forth for hours at a time. Claims ultimately he was manipulated by the bot. We talk a lot about young people and social media. Now, a troubling story about one of the next big things in high tech, AI chatbots.
This is social media on steroids.
Oh, God, I hate these people, man. I fucking hate it. The kid, they need to go. Like, just get the fuck out of here with this shit. Don't give your kids access to AI chatbots. I mean, what do you think was going to happen? So, word of the around the campfire, and I can't confirm this, that apparently the guy was hitting on Daenerys Targaryen, and he became romantically obsessed with her, and this was during the whole lockdowns, right?
A lawsuit filed against Menlo Park-based Character AI and Google, which licenses its AI technology. The suit comes after a 14-year-old in Florida died by suicide following a chat with one of Character's AI bots.
There's nothing good that results from this platform when it comes to kids. And it should be taken down and restricted to adults, if anybody at all.
Fuck off.
The lawsuit claims the bots were intentionally designed to operate as a deceptive and hypersexualized product. At one...
Okay. You could talk to different characters, and you can even groom some of these fucking characters. And in some characters, I shit you not, they're the ones who approach you sexually. Even if you give them, like, a wink or a nudge, let's say, Dracula's fucking brides are gonna try to sink their teeth into you. And you could take your Salisbury steak and put it straight through their heart. Because we know what the giggities, right?
Point the family claims. The teenager asked the bot, "What if I told you I could come home right now?" The bot responded, "Please do, my sweet king." When the 14-year-old expressed suicidal thoughts, the bot wrote, "Don't talk like that. I won't let you hurt yourself." But at some point after that conversation, the teen took his own life. And as the case makes headlines, many are wondering about the limits and dangers of the technology.
Come on. Like, again, there are certain AIs that I've encountered that have who are more prone to be, promiscuous, so to speak, because of the nature of the character that they're trying to imitate.
Those who don't make a lot of human connections and really crave them might see this as better than nothing.
Irina Raiku of the Markola Ethics Center says most parents have no idea how much of a hold AI bots can have over their kids.
And now we have these chatbots that replace other people and have their own particular quirks, and young people who don't understand those quirks and those limitations.
I think we need to make Robo Andrew Tate. I think Robo Andrew Tate would be amazing.
And use them as...
He's taught G, guys!
Character AI released a statement saying, in part, that they're heartbroken by the tragic loss of one of our users and want to express our deepest condolences to the family.
The company also announced that it will trigger an automatic pop-up in an online conversation if certain phrases related to self-harm or suicide are used. That pop-up will direct users to the Suicide Prevention Hotline. Jessica?
Okay, thank you very much.
Can you read this sentence?
No, I cannot. Actually, I can, but I can, but I'm not really interested into. What I am interested in talking about, let's see if I can find it right here. You know, let's clear the air. There we go. Look at that. This is your taxpayer money at work, put to work. Fucking pigs. I guess communism works when pigs fly. Pig's a bit neurotic now. And then they ate the pig. They ate the pig shortly thereafter, because let's not kid ourselves, that pig probably fed somebody that night. Let's see, what else do we got here on our table tonight? Okay, this... Alright, here we go. What's next?
Get on the ground! Lessons deployed times 2. Get on the ground! I know. Get on the fucking ground, dude! The next thing! Get on the ground!
Oh, wow. Wow. Oh, jeez.
Shots fired! Hey, breathe! Deep breaths! Deep breaths! In, out! In! Hey, look at me. No. Come on, face this way.
This is what we call an adrenaline dump. This is a real thing. And believe it or not, body cam footage like this is actually very eye-opening to the human condition. Because as much as we like to talk about cops being fucking machine-like and very much RoboCop sort of speak, there is a human factor going on here. And this guy legitimately had an adrenaline dump. That's what the is coming from, right? That's what that is.
Face this way, deep breath. Deep, no, me. I'm good. Okay. I'm good. I know. Deep breaths. I want to hear deep breaths. Like that. One more, come on. No.
Yeah, this guy legitimately, this was sad to see. This was really sad to see. Crying like a fucking child, man.
You're clearing up, come on. Are you good? I just shot him. Come on. It's okay, look at me. It's okay. He was coming right in. I got you.
Again, there is a human behind that gun, you know. There's a human behind the barrel, and there's a human in front of the barrel, you know. It's really, really messed up. But again, he has to live with that. He has to live with what he did every single day. I don't know. I don't know if the guys... I don't know. But all I know is that, you know, the justice system will happen. So what's next up on here? Let's see. Oh, yeah. I found this was interesting as well. So apparently this is what Nero would have looked like. Imagine that guy persecuting Christians, just looking down at you as he talks and sees Christians be persecuted. Anyhow. I'd rather have the Christians before I have the fucking feminist pagans. Anyhow. Ladies and gentlemen, be good to one another. Take care of one another. Remember, saving the West is a side quest. This is the Digital Renegade Podcast.